Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. On Saturday, your Aggies are going to host South Carolina at Kyle Field for the chance to be 10-0 at the end of the day. And what's probably would mean that they would punch their college football playoff ticket. And that would be fantastic. I'm all for that. But I've got a bigger question because while I'm looking for 10-0, I'm also looking for the opportunity to go beyond. If this is a historic season like it's starting to feel like, bigger outcomes could be waiting. But here's a question I think that the Aggies have to answer on Saturday if we're going to go beyond. Can this team change? Can they change who they are? We've talked a lot about who this team is and what they're made of, right? You've heard me speak on this quite a bit. The media thinks lots of things, but one thing they are consensus about is that A&M's run defense has a lot to be desired. Okay, fine. We started off giving up 203 yards to UTSA. Then we gave up 78 to Utah State, allowed 136 to Notre Dame after that. From there, 52 to Auburn, 77 to Mississippi State, 74 to Florida, 268 to Arkansas, 60 to LSU, and then 207 last week to Missouri. Take that for what you will, okay? Come away with whatever conclusions you want to come away with from those numbers. Maybe the media narrative's wrong. Maybe it's right. There is no denying that A&M has given up some big gashing plays. So with the amazing sack potential, high-powered offense, and deep running game that this team has, yes, this team's identity is one that if you don't accept the narrative about our run D, you would at least have to concede that our run defense is the weakness of this team, right? It's got to be at least the weakness of this team, even if I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it. If I took that spot, I'm not saying I do take that spot. Maybe our run D is that bad. But if I wasn't going to take that spot, I'd definitely have to say this is the worst part of our game. Okay? So it's near impossible to change who you are and what you're made of. If you can't run the ball, usually it stays that way. You don't usually change, but that's kind of what I'm getting at is that if this team's going to do more, it might have to change. Now, if you're made of gold, you're shiny, but you break and you dent easily. Less so with bronze. And if you're hardened steel, forget about it. Okay, you're not going anywhere. SC comes to Kyle Field Saturday, and Elko has one of the biggest tests in front of him. Not beating SC. You've listened to this podcast. It's not about beating SC. It's about beating ourselves. You know, good and well, our biggest opponent is ourselves. And we have to beat ourselves first if we're going to be at our best. So can Elko get this team to change? Can it be a run stopper too and make a deep run? I mean, it's all on the line Saturday, y'all. If you understand what we're actually up against, then you understand what we're actually here to do on Saturday. It's not just beat SC, it's beat ourselves. Welcome to the AggieCentral podcast. I am your host, Central. If you're a first timer, welcome. Tonight, as always, we are just talking ball, no requests for subs. I don't know where I'm at. Hey, if I got 1,100 subs or something like that, I'm trying to get to 12. You're not going to get any of that kind of crap here. This is the People's Sports Pod. Okay, that's where I'm at with this. But if you see or hear something you enjoy, like, comment, share with your buddy. All of those help support the channel and they help get your algorithm right where you need it to be. So, who is South Carolina? What are they made of? And let's start on the offensive side of the ball. So, South Carolina, 129th in total offense, 128th in rushing, 104th in passing, 132nd in sacks allowed, and they're giving up nearly 4 sacks per game. That is a murderer's row of stats. That is something that our defense is just licking their chops with right now. They are. It doesn't get any better, y'all. 124th in tackles for loss. They're giving up over 7 per game. It's 377 total yards on the year when for tackles for loss. That's about 6 yards per TFL. That's basically like starting 1st and 16. If you're starting 6 yards behind the ball, 1st and 16, that's difficult. Let's say you get 2 yards on 1st down and you're 2nd and 8. Really, it's like being 2nd and 14. That's what these types of plays do, and that's the kind of deal they're battling against. Now, in addition to South Carolina, they're giving up 7.6 penalties per game. It's costing them 56 yards per game. For reference, A&M is 7.9 penalties per game, and it's 66 yards per game. So we are giving up or getting more penalties per game and more yardage per game. So, of course, some of this goes to the defense, some of this goes to the offense. We'll kind of parse out here in just a little bit. Let's talk about how A&M deals with this, though. Okay, let's give you a good picture of what the SC offense is like relative to A&M's. I'm going to give you two numbers. Okay, South Carolina is 126th in yards per play. That means 4.6 yards per play is what they're getting. Okay, run, pass, whatever. 4.6 yards per snap. A&M is 6.7 yards per play. That's good enough for top 20. Okay, that's a 2-yard differential per play. Now, just do some quick simple math. We're talking about 3 plays, in an average series before you have to punt, if that's going to be the case, if you don't make the 1st down, right? 2 times 3, 6. And so that's where you get some of your makeup from what A&M's doing. We're getting more per play, whereas they're not counteracting that same penalty or TFL or whatever it may be with quality plays from scrimmage, right? Plus, South Carolina is 112th in explosive plays. Now, A&M has 150 plays this year of 10 yards or more. South Carolina, 103. 103 plays of 10 yards or more. I mean, that's A&M's basically 33% more plays of 10 yards or more. I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it. It could be 50% if you want to look at theirs. What's the correct way? Somebody hit me up in the comments. Either way, it's a lot. It's almost 50 more plays this year that are explosive 10 yards more per play. And that gets 1st downs. That moves the chains, that keeps your drive going. What doesn't keep your drive going are sacks. Sellers has been the most sacked QB this year. I don't expect that trend to quit. Do you? Not with Cassius Howell coming at you, right? Not with Deion Hayes coming at you. That's not realistic. This could be a game where they absolutely feast on this with the way that their offense is playing. Here's the thing. I like Sellers. I like Faison, their running back. But he's not a top 25 guy in the conference. Rushing in the SEC, Faison's he's nowhere to be found, to be quite honest. And I think that speaks volumes to where this offense is. Now he's a big part of their offense still, and still he's just not registering. Together with him and Sellers, they average 5.5 yards per carry. 5.5 yards per carry. Both Owens and Reed are averaging that themselves. So if you put Owens and Reed together, just so we're clear, that would be 11 yards per carry. That's the same thing I did with Faison and Sellers. You put their average yards per carry together, it's 5.5. It's not good. It's not good. So you get the differential going on there. I think we've illustrated that quite well here at how anemic this offense could be. But you've seen them score some points if you watched any of their games. So we will get to that and how that took place. The last 3 games, South Carolina has had 215 yards on the ground total. So just to put a cherry on top, 215 yards total. Last 3 games. That's 70 yards per game. It's not going to cut it, especially when you're going up against defenses like the 54th ranked, the 4th ranked, and the 65th. The 4th was Oklahoma. So they've recently been up against Alabama, Oklahoma, and one other slipping my mind at the moment. Question is which one of these is A&M? Now A&M is ranked 45th. So I mean, probably expect a similar totals and results. But what I'd really like to do is kind of take a look because this is really moving us towards the area that this team needs to think about making a change if they can. Is a change even possible? So, what I want to do is show you 3 plays. Excuse me. What I want to do is show you 3 plays. 3 plays that I think will illustrate what the issue is with this run defense and give you a good idea about whether or not it's actually possible to change. Can Elko do that? Is this set in stone, and is this defense going to be this the rest of the way? All right, here we go. So this is our defense. 3 running plays against Missouri this last week. Now, Mike, my man, I'm going to play all these all the way through without talking. I know that's what you wanted. I listened to you, my man. I'm going to give you what you asked for. I'll come back through and talk about them and slow them down. The reason why I do this is to slow them down because these plays go fast. I could show them to you 3 times and you might not know what you saw or didn't see. I was the same way. I really had to slow these down to really make much sense out of them. Okay? So, first clip has commentary with it from the broadcast, or does not. The second 2 do. Take this, enjoy it, and then we'll come back and chat about it.
Go the other way. He's finally starting to get him.
A tackle for loss. Immediately, Damian Sanford was in defensively. He's in for the injured Scooby Williams.
And that's how you have to stop the outside zone play. You've got to be able to penetrate upfield. And Tyler Onyedem, a transfer from Iowa State, he's not interested in going sideline to sideline. He's 300 pounds. He's just going straight up the field. He's forcing a cutback right into the wash. And a really good job in this space to make the play. There's just too many bodies from A&M in the middle. We talked about all the explosive runs they've been allowing this season. We talk about, too, the break.
All right, so one more time. I'm going to give you a little bit of commentary as you go through. So these were 3 plays. 2 of these were the biggest, most gashing run plays that Mizzou had on us all day. Starting with this first one. And watch 27. Watch Sanford. This is something that has been an issue for us, I would say, even going back to last year, just not capping off the edge. It definitely is a good example of how difficult it can be to actually change what you do. He probably needs to stay outside. Watch him slip up to the line. But he's starting to slide inside because it seems like Hardy is going to go inside. But meanwhile, you've got all this room right down here that's just, it's just gaping wide open. And here he is, probably needs to be just outside of 18 to, set that edge and keep him from being able to bust it outside. If he just let the play flow to him, he'd probably be making just textbook tackle on this. But instead, he slips inside a little bit too much. They get the pin block on 18. And it just leaves the outside wide open. Okay? Not a whole lot more to that. Let me mute this real quick, and let's take a look at the next one. Okay, now look at the top of your screen real quick. Right here. Okay, this is Radcliffe. Radcliffe is one of the safeties, and I've focused in on the safeties a lot this year, so I really want to show him on this one, and the next view is probably going to tell it all. Watch as he creeps up. Right? So here he comes from the outside. He's creeping up. Now, question once he gets up to basically the line of scrimmage is going to be like, well, where's he supposed to go after that? And you'll see Haynes creeping up right here, and he's going to make the tackle, right? He's essentially making the tackle. He's the one that's moving up the field. But it's what's going on away from the ball that I'm actually more interested in to kind of point out about What enabled him to make this particular play? Did somebody else do something else? Well, no, not exactly, but Radcliffe over here, when you get to the next view, I think tells a lot of the story about why this play was enabled to be able to make such a big play. All right, so Haynes come up, he affects that. I think it's actually, is it York that ends up making the tackle? No, it's Sanford. Sanford ends up making the tackle and he shoots the gap a little bit more. Let's watch the next angle. It's definitely a much better view. Okay, Sanford right here, and here's Radcliffe that was creeping up. He creeped up from the back. I really like the reasoning that they got that what was going on right here. But Radcliffe comes up, and as soon as he does that, okay, so you got Haynes right here pushing up the field, right? And then you've got what, 1, 2 gaps at this point that need to be taken care of. Radcliffe right here is definitely going to have backside, so he could cut this back anytime. What Radcliffe does, and I would actually argue this is still a point of growth, although the idea being that Radcliffe has got this gap right here if something happens, and so Hayes can penetrate as hard as he wants up and in to effectuate this play. And then you see how Sanford comes up, fills his gap. York is right there as well if need be, if the cutback happens. But then right here you've got, at this point, it might not be that big a deal. All right, let's jump over to this last play. So you can see right here where Ratcliffe is, right? And then the last play, he moves this way. He moves up into this backside gap. Hayes on the other side moves up and in, right? And so watch real time how this works. Right? So you're just not seeing that exact same thing happen as this play develops. You've got Hayes, and I think it's actually Rink in this situation that's crashing hard into the left. And it seems like between him and 11, they just don't really quite have the understanding of where they're headed to. Because if Rink is headed this way and Hayes is headed this way, oh, sure, you're pinching the inside, but it felt like Haynes needed to be going this way and or kind of asking like what was supposed to happen with this gap over here, right? And without the extra safety help coming up, I don't think that they had the freedom to really address the gaps the way they needed to. And then he busted outside, tried to make the tackle. It was still close. Probably could have got him for like 3 or 4, but that tackle just wasn't in the card. So that's a quick look at what the running game has been, what the running game could be, and where I think this team has the ability to actually make the change. So let's address how to make that change. It's worth noting, though, when it comes to this offense, okay, that we're going to be facing with SC. Versus Ole Miss, they had 2 scores, okay? The first came off a muff punt by Ole Miss that gave SC a short field. SC then goes Sellers, rush, pass to Faison up the middle twice more than the score. Okay, that's how that first score took place um, for SC versus Ole Miss. Okay, the second score, it was aided by 20 yards worth of penalties from Ole Miss. They got up to about, I think it was the Ole Miss 40, well, I guess it would have been their 47 as a matter of fact, because then they threw a 47-yard bomb to Harbor and touchdown. Voila, touchdown. Harbor. If you watched the preview for the season, you would have known, hey, Harbor's the man. Harbor's the guy that we're going to be getting the ball to all year, and he's got 7 touchdowns to boot for it. So he's 6'7", massive dude, 230 or something like that. Big guy to cover. It's no secret. This is the 2 ways that they did it. Sellers. Hand the ball off to Faison if they can and get some yards with him, but it's more of a change of pace almost, kind of keep you Sellers. It's mostly with Sellers and then to Harbor. They do distribute it some to their other wide receivers, but it's mostly in short yardage checkdowns. a few here and there. I don't want to discredit the guys or lay them short, but it seems like it's all just to set up a big throw to Harbor. So if you can limit the big plays, which by definition you're just not going to get that many big plays in the first place, and so this is one of the reasons why they're not scoring as many points. They need things to work through Harbor, and they just end up not being able to get that many. You can't get him 4 bombs per game. It's not going to happen. Okay, so um, they only put together 2 drives of 6 plays or more in this game. Ole Miss racked up 6 sacks and 8 tackles for loss, and there you have it. This is, I mean, can you put together drives, extended drives, when you're giving up those numbers in sacks and TFLs? So that should give you a pretty good idea about what their path to victory is, or at least to keep this game close from a scoring standpoint. On defense, South Carolina is 47th in total D. They're 83rd in rushing D, 32nd in passing D, 101st in third downs, and then 68th in opponent red zone success rate. So they're giving up points 84% of the time, and 50% of those are touchdowns. Um, Defense is, I mean, obviously, just from the numbers, you heard the numbers from the offense, you heard those right there. They're night and day better, but they're not remarkable. They're not remarkable. And I want to add some more context to this. Okay, so their best defensive effort was probably versus Bama a few weeks ago, in my opinion. So I went back and took a look at that game, looked at the box score, the play-by-play, looked at a little bit of the film. But I want to note this beforehand, um, because I don't think Bama quite played like themselves. They had just come off playing number 5 Georgia, 16 Vandy, then they played number 14 Missouri, and then capped it off with number 11 Tennessee before that South Carolina game. Right? You probably have heard about this somewhat historic stretch that they went on. Now it wasn't all the way, but it was a pretty good gauntlet. Pretty good gauntlet. Um, And so, did that have an effect on how they came in and played this game against South Carolina? I think so. I think it took a toll on them, emotional, physical, some type of toll. I don't think Alabama came into that game firing on all cylinders. Okay. So, SC was able to hold them at bay for a while in a couple different ways. Okay. All probably hinging on the fact that Alabama just wasn't playing their A game, and probably not even quite their B plus game. First off, though, here's what SC had to do. It took timely plays. SC really just found a way to get a combination of negative plays and or incompletions at pretty much just the right time. And credit to them. I would say in this game they played their most inspired game. If you look at some of their other games, there were times in this game when you felt like SC wanted it bad. And I listened to some of this, and I think this was kind of the game. The narrative was surrounding this game. This was probably their last chance to kind of really get things turned around if they were going to turn things around. So there was a lot on the line. They probably knew that was the case, and gave a pretty valiant effort, to be honest. It just came up short. There was a 4 possession stretch that I was most impressed with. Um, uh, this one stood out to me the most. To be honest, it was a stretch where SC they affected the QB in some different ways, and it was right there in the third quarter. It was the money time, and they got Alabama to turn the ball over or punt 4 consecutive possessions. How'd they do it? Well, first off, they affected the QB just enough to get Simpson off his game, just slightly imbalanced, making inaccurate throws. Okay. Bama's wide receivers lost a little bit of focus, further supporting the narrative that they weren't quite all there for this particular game. South Carolina got Bama off schedule and early down, so they found some ways to get some negative plays or penalties or what have you. Maybe even just not give up some yards, just a 0 yardage down, okay, and kept them behind the sticks. Then they just made a few timely plays where they got an incompletion. So it looks something like this, where Alabama rushes, they get 0 yards or even get stuffed for -2, or they get a penalty. They start off now 1st and 16. get 4, get 5, and then here we are. If we were first and 15, now we're third and 6, and we're looking for a completion. SC comes up with an incompletion. And that's kind of how this went. So SC led the game 22-14 with about 5 minutes left in this game. So that's somewhat remarkable. And this is against Bama. So this resonates. This is resonating with people because it was against Bama. It's a name. Okay. Um, then Bama kind of woke up and SC just really kind of got gassed. That's what it looked like to me. SC kind of found one drive that made everything work. They go down, they score, they get the 2-point conversion, make it 22-22. Okay. And at this point, South Carolina is just huffing and puffing. I mention this because I definitely think it's going to have something to do with this game as well. A&M has definitely been beating a lot of their opponents by just wearing them down. Now, also with A&M coming off three road games, this stretch that we've been on, it feels a lot like the same situation where A&M could come in and just come in a little bit flat like Bama did. Right? It matches up really, really well with A&M coming off this stretch. So we've been tested. We've been through a gauntlet. Are we ready to let up just a little bit? Maybe. Maybe not. That's really kind of the question that I have for this team at this point. How are we going to come in? All right. But I'll say this. I mean, mostly we're rested, right? We had the bye week right before Missouri. And with that bye week right before Missouri, we were able to just, kind of get a few things, get our legs back underneath us. And this is a pretty massive game. This is a massive, massive game. It has a college football playoff implication on the line. But more than that, it's a get back game. This is a get back game, y'all, from last year. It's at home, whereas SC had the advantage versus Bama being at their home, not at SC played at home, right? They're not going to have that this time around. They're going to be playing at Kyle Field. We're going to be juiced up for this one. This team, I feel certain because they've responded this way throughout the entire year. When it's time to get a get back, they've been on their money for a get back. Okay, if there's a reason this stays close, I think we'd probably look back on this game. We'd probably say something like, yeah, A&M came in flat and SC came in high. This is the last chance they've got to make a bowl game, so they might have the dog in the corner syndrome as well, like some other teams have had. I'm not going to play this game like I have some of the other ones where I think that people are making this out to be an upset. No one's making this to be an upset or a trap game this time. Finally, it took 9 weeks for that to happen, but here we are. So that's not happening. But they're probably going to come in and they're probably going to snap at us a few times early on. We might have to smack them around before we can, get them back into place where we need them to be. But look for them to really want to go out and put up a fight and maybe find an upset where people didn't think that they could. So will SC come out motivated? Like I said, this is it if they want to make a bowl. Got to win out, and it starts here if they want to make a bowl. If that were enough, though, they might have a chance. But from an X's and O's standpoint, I did want to point this out. Even with the likes of the talent of Dylan Stewart, you just don't quite have the same domination you have going on like from our defensive line or from a Missouri defensive line. So Missouri at least had the tandem. And this was something we talked about from Missouri that they might be able to have some effect because they've got a balance there on the defensive line between the two edges. SC just doesn't have that. It's Dylan Stewart, and that's pretty much it. So scheming that, a lot easier. Now, we didn't have much trouble with Missouri, so it's not like I can make some massive, massive point off of this. But even when they did have two higher quality edges and a better defensive line, it still didn't make that much difference. So Stewart would definitely benefit from somebody else helping him out, but not so much versus A&M. I just don't see it. So, but I digress. The yeah, that's really all there is to that, y'all. I mean, I'm feeling pretty gung ho about this. I mean, so we're kind of getting back to this question. Here's the bottom line and my thought process for this for predicting. Okay. I said this 4 game stretch was figuring out what this team's made of. Starting last week with Missouri, 4 game stretch. First 8 games were about who we are. Last 4 games are about what we are made of. Now, we don't know yet. If we're gold, you could change gold pretty easily, right? But it gets dents and it gets dings quite easily. Everyone knows that if you've got an Aggie ring, right? You got one of those, you know, dings are everywhere, right? You dropped it, you hit it on this, you hit it on that. I mean, heck, I'm missing a diamond in mine. It just straight fell out. So I don't know if that's about the gold piece or not, but either way, I got plenty of little dings in it, right? Um, if we're still, we're battle tested, right? But you can't change. Can't change if you're still. Not easily. Not nearly as easily as you can if you're gold. Elko doesn't change this team. He welds on to this. He welds on the pieces that he needs for this team. He's not going to change this team. He's going to add something to it. That's what I think is going to happen. I'm going big on this, y'all. But this is at Kyle Field. This is the last SEC game at Kyle Field. It's a huge get back game, like I said, which this group has been really good for these types of games, y'all. I have this game 42-10. Aggies, if that wasn't clear enough. I mean, I think Harbor and Sellers, find a way to get a TD, probably late, field goal early, something like that. Maybe on the backups. I'm not sure. Our backups might play in this one, but this team goes out and punches its ticket to the playoffs. That's what I think, y'all. That's what I think. They punched their ticket to the playoffs on Saturday. Book it. We'll see y'all later.